Hello, my most amazing artists. How are you today? I'm excited to create a pumpkin with you. We're going to be focusing on the element of art, which is shape. A shape is when you have two ends that come together. So we start with a line. A line has two ends, and it starts and comes all the way back around and meets in the same point. It has the same starting point and ending point, and it creates a shape. There can be different kinds of shapes. There can be organic shapes, which are made up shapes, or there can be the shapes we know, which are geometric shapes. We're actually going to be focusing on ovals today when we make our pumpkin, but also within shape, we're going to be talking about what's called overlapping. So you have a shape that you start with, but when another shape comes in, it covers it just a little bit, not completely, and not just barely next to it touching, but when it covers it, it's called overlapping. And to create our pumpkin, if you look down here, you can see our pumpkin has some overlapping ovals. So what we'll do is we'll actually take a bunch of these and overlap them to create our little pumpkin and add a stem in the middle. So we are doing overlapping with our shapes. You'll need just a few items, but you can get as creative as you like. You can use fabric, you can use craft materials you have around your house, but I'm just going to use the basics. I'll use some white paper, a black marker, and some crayons, and then just for fun I'll cut it out. If you don't have any regular plain white paper, you can always take something that has writing on one side and create it on the back, or you can use some construction paper to make your own. We've made lots of pumpkins in art just this past week. Second and third grade did some Yayoi Kusama inspired pumpkins. These had more organic shapes to them, but we are using the geometric oval shape. And then my first graders, if you were with me last week, you did a 3D pumpkin using a bunch of strips of paper. So that was a fun one. Well, now we're just going to be focusing on drawing. First thing we'll do when we have our marker open, now if you'd like to use pencil first, that's totally fine, but we're going to start with our marker open. We want to draw big in the middle of the paper. It's very tempting to draw a circle instead of an oval. An oval is like a long, skinny circle, and we really want to squish it down. So here I have a shape, and a lot of people tend to do that. Think about squishing your circle sideways to make it a long, skinny oval, or think about a hot dog. And I sometimes will start by just moving my hand around the paper to get an idea of the size that I want, so I don't end up drawing too small. If you draw small, guess what? That's okay. We'll make our mistakes work. You can make a whole pumpkin patch of pumpkins. But I'm going to start here, and I'm going to start with a long, skinny oval. And I take time when drawing my shapes, so I know where I'm going rather than just drawing it really, really quickly. Okay, after I have my first oval, I'm going to go ahead and draw the stem. The stem has two curved lines that come down, and generally it starts smaller at the top and bigger at the base. Then I'm going to draw a little oval for the top of it. Okay? After that, we're going to draw our overlapping shapes. These are actually the shapes that are underneath, and we don't want to draw the whole shape because it's hiding behind it, like we talked about earlier when I've got another shape hiding behind the other one. So we're going to draw kind of like a C, a forward C and a backward C on either side. And a pumpkin, the main part that sits on the ground or that's closest to us is the largest one, so it's going to be down here. The other pieces are going to stop a little bit shorter up and higher, kind of like when I take this. If I take my two pieces, the new ones are going to come up a little higher. See how that's lower and these are higher? So we're going to start here and we're going to come around to create our pumpkin. Take these off. Alright, so I'm going to start over here, and I'm going to do my backward C and come down and make a big space, and I'm going to stop it a little bit short of the bottom. Do the same thing over here. Beautiful. I'm sure your first time was just as well. The more you practice it, the better you'll get. Alright, let's add another one. I'm going to start back here. I'm going to come out. I want to make my pumpkin really wide and fill up my whole space. Lovely. Okay, let's go ahead and add some little bumps in the back. These are what's behind the pumpkin. We're still overlapping there because on the other side, if I were to turn it around, you'd see that same shape. But this shape is overlapping all the others. If you'd like to add something else like a squiggly line for your pumpkin, or if you'd like to add a leaf, you are welcome to do so. Next, we're going to focus on coloring. When we color, we want to try our best to make it look nice rather than just having our lines go everywhere. A simple way with crayons to add a little bit of depth, like it has some curve to it, is to use two different shades of a color. So I'm going to use a red orange and a regular orange when I'm coloring. We've talked about in art doing bumper coloring or bumper painting. That's where I go around the edges first. Not only does that really look nice and make your picture pop, but it also helps with coloring outside of the lines. If we get out a little lines, that's okay, especially if you plan on cutting it out. But scribbling all over the paper back and forth in this direction just looks a little bit more messy. And for this to look nice, we want to bumper color around the edge. So I'm going to start with my darker orange, and I'm going to bumper color around the edge of all of my shapes. You'll also do this with your stem, and if you added a leaf or anything like that, you can bumper color around that. After I bumper color around the edges, then I'm going to take my crayon and I'm going to color with it. I'm going to color lightly in the middle just to give it a little bit little dimension because I colored pretty heavy around the edges, and I'm going to keep my lines going in the same direction. If I go all over in every different direction, it doesn't look as good. So I'm going to go up and down, filling it all in. And my lines with the crayon are also going to overlap each other to fill in all the space. So I'm going to do big strokes back and forth. My lines are overlapping before I move on to the next section. That is the easiest way to make your coloring flow and fill in your space, is to do it just like that. And that crayon on the edge where we bumper colored keeps me from going out of my lines. Now I actually went out of my lines a little bit down here, but guess what? That's okay. I'm going to make my mistakes work. Mistakes are all a part about learning in the process, and sometimes we can make our art better. I'm going to finish this up and I'll come right back. Alrighty, I was able to finish this up, and I brought these other pumpkins in here because if your pumpkin came out kind of a funky shape, guess what? That is awesome. If you've ever been to a pumpkin patch in the fall, you may have noticed there's some really weird pumpkins out there. Some of them have gnarly shapes to them, very funky and wobbly. Some of them are different colors. Some of them have knobs all over and warts. The weirder, the better, in my opinion. I love weird. So if your pumpkin came out all weirdly shaped, that is just perfect and right along my lines. I think it's going to be beautiful. I brought back in these other ones to show you that we actually focused on making some weirder pumpkins with my other group. So you're just right along with my second and third graders as they made these. You're welcome to cut this out. You can draw a background. You can make a whole pumpkin patch. It is totally up to you, but I want to see you overlapping those shapes. I hope you guys have an amazing week, and I will see you next time. Bye!